and to fulfill the calling that is upon your life. That's how it worked for them, and that's how it works for us in our lives. This is how it applies. Hey, this is Eric with True Roots, and we are back with another episode of the Common Man's Torah. Can you believe it? We are closing out the book of Numbers this week. It's crazy how fast this year is going. This week, we are studying the Torah portion. It's actually a double portion, Matot and Masei. Matot means tribes, and Masei means the journeyings of, or the journeys of. And this is Numbers chapter 30, verse 1 through 36:13. Basically, Numbers 30 through the end of the book. We are closing it out, and we are rounding the corner, or leaving Horeb, to use a metaphor, and we are heading towards the promised land of finishing the Torah portion, which is just incredible. This portion, we are going to pan the camera back a little bit, and that's kind of what the Lord is doing here with the scriptures. And we're going to go at a high level and get some reinforcement of things that the children of Israel need to know before they go into the land, and they also apply to us as we are out here in our daily lives, because as we know, the Torah doesn't go away. It's actually applicable to everyday life, and it will be in the kingdom how we will be living our lives, or expected to be governing ourselves and the nations and everyone for that matter. So, we're going to recap here just for a second. So the last few portions, we are getting a real picture of what happens when you reject the promise of the Lord. And that comes first by way of unbelief. Generally, there's a fear involved that is coupled with unbelief that causes us to not receive a promise of the Lord, because here's a principle that you will hear me say over and over and over again. This is something that needs to be foundational in your everyday walk. Anytime we get a promise from the Lord that I will do this, it's always going to be paired with an instruction. You need to do something. And why is that? The reason is because an instruction is the test of the heart of whether or not we really believe what it is the Lord is telling us to do. So as I used last week, this example, you've got a promise that's like a new pasture of green grass that if we're like sheep and we're going to go into this new pasture and we're going to eat on this good green grass, there's a gate in front of us. And the key that unlocks that gate, that opens up the new pasture to us, is the instruction, the obedience to the instruction. And if we don't apply the instruction to that gate, the gate will not open to us, and we'll go back into the existing pasture that we've already been in, and we'll retread the same grass and try to eat from the same blessings, the same things that we've learned. And this is why you'll see people who don't have new things that the Lord is showing them and leading them into. They have the same stories they tell over and over and over again. For if you're one of those people, or if you know somebody who's doing that in your life, that person has gone to the gate, and the Lord was leading them into a new season of growth in their lives, and they turned back, and they're walking in circles in the land that they had already grown into. And it's growing stale, and the grass isn't nearly as abundant as what it could be in their lives. Doesn't mean they're not saved, doesn't mean they're not the Lord's. It means they're not able to grow into the fullness of what it is that the Lord has for them, because they've rejected the promise of the Lord. And that's exactly where the children of Israel are in this portion. The Lord said, go into the land, tell me how great it is. They went into the land. They said, yes, this land's amazing, but there's giants in the land, and we're afraid of those guys, and they can kill us. And the test in this situation was always that in and of our own strength, if you've been with me the last few portions, in and of our own strength is always going to fail, because that's the whole point. Yeshua said, apart from him that we can do nothing. I was never intended to walk in what God has called me to in my own strength, because I will never, ever, ever become as fruitful as what the Lord has intended for me. I can only do it in His way and in His will and by His instruction. And so they turned back, and now that opens the door to all of these things. In one of our last portions, we had the tribe of Simeon pairing up with the Midianites, and they made these political unions, and they gave their children together in marriage. And this was something that the Lord had expressly told them not to do, because what happens is when we make political agreements with people who are playing by different rules, the world's rules, we are opening the door up to the vexation that it is that can come upon us by reason of us rebelling against the Lord. The principle is this: doing it in our own strength, going about things our own way, never ends well. And we see that in 1 Samuel 15:23, where Samuel told Saul, rebellion is exactly the same as witchcraft. And so when they had rebelled against the Lord and they had made these agreements with the Midianites, now they've opened the door to the vexation that can come upon them. They were able to be cursed, and now a whole bunch of people die as a result of it. And in the process, the entire camp is now complaining and murmuring, and all of this stuff is going on. And this all traces back to that initial unbelief with that promise that the Lord has given to them. That is the recap of the last several weeks. And this is kind of a recap of the entire journey of this wilderness journey. We come out into a place with the Lord, whether that's in our personal lives or whether that's here with the children of Israel, to a place where we have to rely upon Him. And initially He provides for us. 100% everything's going well, and this is amazing. And it comes to a point where He says, okay, now it's time to grow. Now it's time for you to start doing some things, but you need to do this with my guidance and in my strength, not in your own strength. And we've got to make that choice to trust Him. And this is how the process goes. Now they're at the end of this wilderness journey, and we're wrapping up the book of Numbers, and we're about to enter into the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses is basically going to recount to them everything that's already happening. So Deuteronomy is just a recounting of all that's already happened. This whole recap. This is what happened. This is what's expected of you. You're about to go into the land. This is what the Lord wants from you. This is what He's going to do for you. And here's the instructions on how to go in there and to succeed in the way that the Lord has ordained for you to succeed and to fulfill the calling that is upon your life. That's how it worked for them, and that's how it works for us in our lives. This is how it applies. So with that being said, we're now going to go into the portion, Numbers chapter 33, starting in verse 50. And this is like a central hinging point. It's a pivotal moment. Just prior to when Moses is about to recount everything that has happened, it's a key instruction. Remember, they're going into this land that is supposed to bless them. They're going to interact with it. And it is the mechanism by which the Lord is going to bring blessing in their lives so that all of the nations of the world can come and see what's so different about you. What's different about them is they have this interaction, this relationship with the Almighty. And He's blessing them. And it is to be used as a mechanism to draw people to Him. So Numbers chapter 33, starting in verse 50, it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck down all their high places. These are instruments of idolatry. And ye shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it." So He says, go in, drive all of these people out. You don't make agreements with them. You don't come into fellowship with them. He's given very clear instruction. And the reason you will see here in just a minute. "And you shall divide the land by lot for an inheritance among your families, and to the more you shall give the more inheritance, and to the fewer you shall give the less inheritance. Every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot falleth. According to the tribes of your fathers ye shall inherit." But here's the kicker. If you will not drive out the inhabitants from the land before you, then it shall come to pass that those which ye let remain of them shall be pricks in your eyes and thorns in your sides. If you want to know what Paul's thorn in his flesh was, and shall vex you in the land wherein you dwell. Notice it's connected to the land. Moreover, here's the key. It shall come to pass that I shall do unto you as I thought to do unto them. Why? Because anytime we reject a promise or an instruction of the Lord and we go about it our own way, it becomes a snare. It becomes a trap for us. And that's exactly what happened here with the children of Israel. They let the people stay. You know the story as it goes, but the Lord's given them very, very clear instruction. Do not go in there and allow those people to stay, because what's going to happen is you're going to start mixing things. You're going to mix their stuff in with your stuff, the stuff that I've given you, to be separate or holy, as the scripture calls it. And it's going to cause me to do unto you what I was going to do unto them. Why? Because of what they're doing. So this is a very important principle with the Torah. And without reading the scripture from Genesis this way, rather than the New Testament that way, we unhinge ourselves from promises like this, and then we get down into, it's 2025 right now, and you have someone like me or other people like Luke, friends of mine who are teaching, saying, hey, we need to return to the Lord's ways, to the ways of the Torah, for the way that we live our lives. And people are like, oh, we're not under law, we're under grace. But the problem is, dating back to around 300 AD forward, the people of God have started mixing the ways of the heathen. And there's no other way to get around this. I mean, a really good documentary to go see is Luke's documentary, The Christmas Question, where it talks about the origins of Christmas, and Easter is the same way. It's named after a goddess, Ishtar. These things were the ways of the heathen, and we have mixed them together. And I've heard 1,000 different reasons on why it's Christian now, and so on and so forth. But you can't assume authority that you were never given. That's the problem. And this is not to create a fight with anybody. This is to say that the scripture alone has to be our authority. And especially most of the people who aren't Roman Catholic will claim that the scripture is our high authority. And yet will use tradition and arguments of men to justify something that we love and culturally has become normal to us, because it's uncomfortable to go back and to change things and to return to the Lord and obey him. That's the reality. Yeah, is it inconvenient sometimes to walk in the Torah in our society? Of course it is. But we're in a process of restoration, and those of us who have been called to do this need to obey his call and begin applying these things to the best of our knowledge and ability as we continue to grow in them, so that the rest of the world can look and say, hey, there's blessing here. The Lord is in this. His feast days, his holidays are actually about Yeshua. They're all about him. And the world can be drawn to that. If we mix the world's ways, which is exactly what the Lord was telling the children of Israel not to do, if we mix the ways of the world into what it is that we're doing, where does it end? It's a train that doesn't stop. It just continues on, and you're going to have this amalgamation, this mystery Babylon Great amalgamation of all of the religions, and it's just going to be a big hodgepodge of madness. So that's my preaching moment for this week. We've got to understand these principles at a high level, and understand that we don't depart from them just because Yeshua rose from the dead. Nobody's trying to save their soul through keeping the Torah. It's the instruction and the obedience that the Lord has given to us on how to live our lives. So this hinge, this moment now, allows them to go into chapter 34 and they start giving the boundaries of each of the tribes and where they're going to live. And then you get to the end of chapter 34 and he says, these are the rulers, these are the politicians, to use a modern word. These are the people who are going to make decisions on behalf of everybody else. Now, understand this. The Torah is a system of representative government. And that's what was being established here. So he's giving them instruction as they go into the land. Hey, don't mix what the world is doing. One of those things is don't take a king, right? And that's, you see what ends up happening. They take a king because they see, oh, this is what the heathen are doing. The original intent was representative government, very much like we have in the United States of America today. And then if we get to Numbers, move on to Numbers 35, starting in verse 33, it talks about blood defiling the land. So verse 33 says, So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defiles the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the children of Israel. So innocent blood defiles the land. So let's talk about a modern thing that a lot of people are arguing over these days. Abortion. Abortion is the shedding of innocent blood, and it is defiling the land. Now, there is a way for that blood to be cleansed, and that is by the blood of Christ, because the scriptures tell us that he became sin, who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him. And so, because he became sin, and because he became a curse, he was cursed for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. We can apply his blood to the innocent blood that we shed and ask the Father to forgive these sins. We can intercede because we have been made priests and kings unto our God, so that we can move in a priestly role. We can intercede and ask him to forgive the innocent blood. Okay. And then we can, with the blood of Christ, atone for that blood. And then in authority, break the curse that was upon the land, moving in a kingly operation, break that curse that is upon the land and free the land so that it can be blessed. And we wonder why we're having a lot of problems in our land today. The land has become defiled by innocent blood and a number of other things that we're not going to go into further. Moving on then to the last chapter of this portion, chapter 36 talks about land inheritance and how it's passed down. So you can see here we're closing out the book of Numbers, and he's telling them this is how things need to operate. Don't mix among the heathen. This is how things need to remain clean. Here's the boundaries of your people. Here's how the land passes down. Here's how it's inherited from person to person, from father to son or father to daughter even. It addresses that here. This is a setup chapter, a transition chapter, and the very key thing is don't do the things that the heathen are doing. And the same thing remains true for us. So we have now closed out the book of Numbers, and we're moving into the book of Deuteronomy. And Moses is standing before the children of Israel, and he is about to recount everything that they have been through, because remember, these are the children of the people who originally came out. And he's reminding them, these things happened. This is what you need to know. And this is what you need to know going into this land. And here's what you need to do and how you need to operate. So we are in a transition phase from one season to the next. And perhaps you're in a transition phase in your life. And I want to encourage you, look for the instruction that the Lord has given to you, because that is the key that opens up the gate to the new season of growth in your life. Hey, I'm Eric with True Roots. I hope this has been a blessing to you. We've now closed out the book of Numbers, and we are moving into the book of Deuteronomy. Come on back, because this stuff just gets more and more fun. And I hope to see you again soon. All right. Bye, everyone.